For 10 years, Ethan Vance served the noble house of Sterling with absolute loyalty, believing he was a cherished foster son. But greed knows no family. Framed for the brutal assassination of the Grand Duke, Ethan found himself dragged to the execution block by the very people he called family. Lord Ronald Sterling, with his slick-back golden hair and cold blue eyes, stood in his opulent white and gold ceremonial armor, looking down on Ethan with a sneer of utter contempt. As the heavy iron chains dug into his flesh, Ethan realized his entire life had been a lie designed to make him the perfect scapegoat. The betrayal burned hotter than any fire in his soul. Thrown into the Abyss prison, a bottomless cavern where light never penetrated, Ethan was left to rot. His body was broken, his spirit shattered, and his wounds festered in the damp chill of the subterranean dungeon. He could hear the mocking laughter of Lord Ronald echoing in his mind, a constant reminder of his naivety. In this dark, hopeless place, Ethan survived on nothing but raw hatred. Every agonizing breath he took was fueled by a singular, burning desire for vengeance. He would not die here. He would drag the Sterlings down into the dirt, even if he had to crawl through hell to do it. On the verge of death, as his pulse began to fade, the shadows around Ethan began to squirm. From the deepest darkness of the abyss, a primordial shadow entity offered him a forbidden pact, absolute power in exchange for his humanity. Ethan did not hesitate. He accepted the dark bargain, letting the shadows seep into his veins and knit his broken bones back together. When the transformation was complete, his hair had turned a stark silver, and his eyes glowed with a terrifying, cursed crimson light. Embracing his new identity, Ethan Vance died in that cell, and the Shadow Arbitrator was born from his ashes. Years passed, and a mysterious figure arrived in the bustling capital city of the Empire. Wearing a high-collared black trench coat with intricate silver embroidery, Ethan Vance walked the crowded streets completely unnoticed, his presence masked by the shadows clinging to his form. His silver hair fell sharply over his pale face, his glowing crimson eyes hidden beneath the shadow of his hood. The capital was as decadent as ever, completely unaware that the agent of their destruction had returned. Ethan looked up at the towering Sterling estate, a cold, ruthless smile gracing his lips. The executioner had returned to pass judgment. The first target on Ethan's list of vengeance was Magistrate Trevor, the corrupt judge who had accepted Ronald Sterling's bribes to seal Ethan's fate without a trial. Tonight, Trevor was celebrating his wealth in his lavishly decorated study, counting gold coins under the warm glow of magic lamps. Suddenly, the shadows in the corner of the room lengthened, swallowing the light. Out of the darkness stepped Ethan, his high-collared black trench coat flowing silently. His glowing crimson eyes pierced the dim light, fixing on the trembling magistrate. The air grew freezing cold, and the scent of death filled the room. Before the magistrate could scream, the shadow-forged tendrils erupted from Ethan's shadow, wrapping tightly around the man's throat and lifting him off the ground. Ethan's pale, sharp jawline remained expressionless as he tightened the grip of the dark constructs. Trevor gasped for air, his eyes wide with absolute terror as he recognized the silver hair and the terrifying power of the boy he had condemned to death. Ethan did not want a quick kill. He wanted the magistrate to suffer the same paralyzing fear he had felt in the dark. The shadows whispered of sins that could never be washed away. Ethan forced the terrified magistrate to sign a full confession detailing the Sterling family's crimes, corruption, and the frame-up of Ethan Vance. Once the document was secured, Ethan watched coldly as the shadows completely consumed the magistrate, leaving no physical trace of his existence except for the signed confession lying on the mahogany desk. Ethan picked up the paper, his pale fingers tracing the ink. One name was crossed off his list, but the true monsters still ruled the capital. The shadows danced around him, eager for the next hunt as he vanished into the night. To strike at the heart of the Sterling family, Ethan needed inside information on their upcoming trade deals and political alliances. He orchestrated an infiltration of the Grand Sterling Winter Banquet, a lavish affair filled with corrupt nobles. Moving like a ghost through the grand ballroom, Ethan kept his hood low, his glowing crimson eyes observing the crowd from the balcony. His silver hair caught the light of the crystal chandeliers, but the shadows bent around him to keep him invisible to the guards. He watched Lord Ronald Sterling, who looked as arrogant as ever in his gold-trimmed robes. In the palace gardens, Ethan met his secret ally Lyra, a master spy who had her own score to settle with the Sterlings. Lyra stood in the moonlight, her sleek black hair tied in a high ponytail, her emerald-green eyes flashing with determination. She wore tight leather assassin garb with violet accents that allowed her to move silently through the shadows. Lyra handed Ethan a golden wax-sealed ledger containing the roots of the Sterling family's illegal weapon shipments. Their eyes met, a silent agreement passing between them. Together, they would dismantle the Sterling Empire piece by piece, starting with their wealth. The next day, Lord Ronald Sterling stood before the High Council, declaring his family's absolute supremacy and pushing for a new law that would crush the lower districts. His slick-back golden hair shone under the council chamber's skylight, and his cold blue eyes radiated absolute authority. But just as he began his speech, the council doors flew open. A dark, chilling wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing the torches. The council members gasped as a sense of impending doom filled the air. Ronald's confident smirk faltered, replaced by a sudden, inexplicable sense of dread that chilled him to his bones. Using the ledger provided by Lyra, Ethan intercepted the primary Sterling cargo caravan carrying illegal magical weapons. Under the cover of a moonless night, the heavily guarded carriage moved through a narrow mountain pass. Suddenly, the ground beneath the horses turned into a pool of pure pitch-black shadow. Ethan stood on a high cliff overlooking the pass, his high-collared black trench coat billowing in the wind, his silver hair contrasting sharply against the night sky. His glowing crimson eyes flared with power as he raised his hand, commanding the shadows to strike the unsuspecting guards below. The shadows rose like giant, hungry beasts, tearing through the Sterling mercenary guards with brutal efficiency. The soldiers fired their magical rifles, but the bullets simply passed through the dark constructs. Ethan descended from the cliff, landing silently in the center of the chaos. His hands transformed into sharp shadow blades as he sliced through the remaining opposition in a flurry of silver and black. He was a force of nature, an unstoppable storm of vengeance. Within minutes, the entire caravan was neutralized and the illegal cargo was seized, leaving the Sterling family financially ruined. News of the lost caravan and the missing magistrate reached Lord Ronald Sterling, throwing him into a state of absolute fury and panic. In his private study, Ronald smashed a crystal glass against the wall, his slick-back golden hair disheveled, his cold blue eyes bloodshot with rage. He realized someone was systematically targeting his empire from the shadows. He ordered his personal guard to lock down the entire estate and find the culprit at all costs. Little did he know, the culprit was already inside his walls, watching his every move with a cold, calculating gaze. Ethan confronted his adoptive brother, Julian Sterling, the man who had personally locked the chains around Ethan's wrists 10 years ago. Ethan cornered Julian in the family's private training grounds. Julian, with his short golden hair and arrogant expression, drew his rapier, but his hand trembled when he saw the silver-haired figure standing before him. The glowing crimson eyes of the visitor confirmed his worst nightmare. Ethan stepped forward, his high-collared black trench coat rustling. His voice was a cold whisper that echoed in Julian's mind, demanding retribution for the betrayal of their brotherhood. Julian let out a desperate cry and lunged forward, his rapier coated in holy light, aiming straight for Ethan's heart. But Ethan didn't even flinch. With blinding speed, Ethan parried the strike with a blade made of pure darkness, the clash of light and shadow sending shockwaves through the training grounds. Julian's attacks were wild and driven by panic, while Ethan moved with absolute precision and grace. Every strike from Ethan's shadow blade chipped away at Julian's defense, leaving deep gashes in his expensive leather armor. The gap in their power was absolute and terrifying. Disarmed and bleeding, Julian fell to his knees, his golden hair matted with sweat and dirt. He looked up at Ethan, begging for mercy, pleading that he was only following his father's orders. Ethan looked down at his former brother, his glowing crimson eyes devoid of any warmth. He remembered how Julian had laughed as Ethan was dragged away to the abyss. With a swift, merciless strike of his shadow blade, Ethan silenced Julian's pleas forever. He took Julian's family crest ring, a bloody trophy to present to Lord Ronald. There was no room for mercy. With Julian dead and the Sterling family assets frozen due to the exposed confession, Lyra met Ethan in an abandoned clock tower to plan the final strike. Lyra, her sleek black hair swaying in the drafty tower, analyzed the city map with her emerald green eyes. She warned Ethan that Ronald was preparing to summon an ancient forbidden relic to sacrifice the citizens of the lower districts to restore his family's fortune. Ethan's grip tightened on his trench coat. They had to strike tonight during the lunar eclipse, when Ronald's dark ritual would begin. Under the relentless pressure of the hostile takeover bid and the ongoing investigations, Kang Minjun's early 30s, disheveled dark hair, expensive suit now looking rumpled, panicked expression composure began to unravel completely. He made a series of reckless, desperate decisions, further eroding investor confidence and weakening Titan Murray from within. Chairman Choi, late 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes, powerful aura, expensive suit, while furious, tightened his manipulative grip, using Minjun's vulnerabilities to exert even greater control, transforming him into a mere puppet. Minjun's ambition had led him down a path of no return, deeper into Choi's web of corruption. He was trapped, a pawn consumed by the very game he thought he was winning, blindly following orders that would inevitably lead to his own ruin. It was during the chaotic defense against the Helios takeover that Phantom, Lee Jinwoo in his early 30s, silver-streaked dark hair, piercing cold eyes, sharp jawline, wearing a tailored dark suit, struck at the heart of Titan Corp's deepest secret. Leveraging a newly discovered backdoor in their security system, he accessed encrypted servers containing horrifying truths. What he uncovered was far more sinister than corporate espionage. Chairman Choi had been operating a massive illegal data harvesting scheme for years, selling the personal information of millions for illicit gain, manipulating markets, and influencing elections. The sheer scale and depravity of the operation sickened Jinwoo, hardening his resolve. This was not just revenge, it was a crusade against a true monster. The glowing data streams and schematics revealed the full horror. With this damning evidence, Phantom needed an insider to validate and deliver the final blow. He approached Ms. Lee, Chairman Choi's longtime personal secretary, late 30s, elegant but fearful professional attire, a woman who had silently witnessed years of Choi's atrocities. Distraught by the extent of the chairman's crimes, Ms. Lee was at her breaking point. Phantom Lee Jinwoo, in his early 30s, silver-streaked dark hair, piercing cold eyes, sharp jawline, wearing a tailored dark suit, met her in a deserted alleyway, a place where shadows concealed their illicit exchange. She provided him with a crucial encrypted data chip containing not just more proof of the data harvesting, but also undeniable evidence directly linking Choi to Jinwoo's original framing. Her fear was palpable, but her conscience had finally won. Armed with Ms. Lee's data, Phantom initiated a high-risk infiltration of Titan Corp's central data vault, seeking physical copies and redundant backups to ensure the evidence's survival. The mission was nearly compromised. As he downloaded the final files, an alarm blared and Chairman Choi's elite security forces, masked, heavily armed, swarmed the vault. Phantom Lee Jinwoo, in his early 30s, silver-streaked dark hair, piercing cold eyes, sharp jawline, wearing dark tactical gear, found himself in a desperate firefight, narrowly dodging bullets and laser sights. He leaped through an exploding doorway, a shower of sparks and debris marking his escape, a faint scratch appearing on his cheek. He was almost caught, but the mission was successful. The truth was now secure, ready to be unleashed. The carefully orchestrated release of Chairman Choi's criminal empire unfolded simultaneously across global news networks. The precise moment of Titan Corp's biggest product launch event, Phantom unleashed all the accumulated evidence. Videos, encrypted documents, bank records, and coerced testimonies flooded the internet and airwaves, exposing the full horrifying scale of the illegal data harvesting, the market manipulation, and the corrupt politicians under Choi's thumb. Chairman Choi, late 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes, powerful aura, expensive suit, watched utterly stunned, as his meticulously built facade crumbled live on television. The world watched in disbelief as his empire, built on lies and exploitation, began to spectacularly implode. Phantom's Lee Jinwoo, in his early 30s, silver-streaked dark hair, piercing cold eyes, sharp jawline, tailored dark suit, masked silhouette briefly flashed on screens, a digital ghost unveiling the truth. The aftermath was immediate and catastrophic. Global stock markets plunged into chaos, Titan Corp's value plummeting into oblivion. Governments around the world launched urgent, wide-ranging investigations, seizing assets and issuing arrest warrants. Public outrage reached a fever pitch, with enraged citizens demanding justice against the corporate behemoth that had violated their privacy and trust. The mighty Chairman Choi, once an untouchable icon of industry, was now a globally reviled figure, his name synonymous with corruption and betrayal. His meticulously built empire, sustained by decades of deceit, imploded with a resounding crash, leaving behind only rubble and the stench of his crimes. The world watched, gripped by the downfall of a titan. As Senator Valerius, a portly man in his late 50s with a balding head and a meticulously groomed gray beard, began his address, Elias Thorne, a lean man in his late 20s with sharp, intelligent dark eyes and disheveled dark brown hair, initiated his plan. Suddenly, the city's screens flickered, overriding Valerius's speech with a distorted, anonymous voice and damning evidence. Serafina Kalin, a statuesque woman in her early 40s with piercing sapphire blue eyes and long, sleek black hair, tried to flee the stage, but her path was blocked by a stealth field. As the field dropped, Elias Thorne, in his full mechanist regalia, stood before her, projecting images of her complicity for all to see. Panic erupted in the hall. Serafina, cornered and exposed, her carefully constructed facade crumbling, found herself facing the man she thought she had destroyed. The truth, ugly and undeniable, began to unfold live for all of Neo Viridia. The holographic projections displayed undeniable proof. Recorded conversations between Senator Valerius, a portly man in his late 50s with a balding head and a meticulously groomed gray beard, and Serafina Kalin, a statuesque woman in her early 40s with piercing sapphire blue eyes and long, sleek black hair, detailing the Ether Core sabotage, their cover-up, and the frame-up of Elias Thorne, a lean man in his late 20s with sharp, intelligent dark eyes and disheveled dark brown hair. The city watched in stunned silence as their beloved senator and revered CEO were exposed as corrupt architects of disaster. The confession of the Kalin Industries employee, facilitated by Elias, confirmed every detail. Valerius, seeing his empire crumble, collapsed on stage. Serafina, her face contorted in a mixture of fury and despair, lunged at Elias, but he deftly evaded her. Justice was not just being revealed, it was being delivered live. In the chaos that followed, Detective Anya Sharma, a sharp, determined woman in her early 30s with keen brown eyes and dark hair tied in a practical ponytail, a lean and athletic build, wearing a worn trench coat, arrived with her own team, swiftly securing Senator Valerius, a portly man in his late 50s with a balding head and a meticulously groomed gray beard, and Serafina Kalin, a statuesque woman in her early 40s with piercing sapphire blue eyes and long, sleek black hair. The public, initially confused, erupted in a mixture of anger and relief. Elias Thorne, a lean man in his late 20s with sharp, intelligent dark eyes and disheveled dark brown hair, his mission accomplished, nodded subtly to Anya, a silent acknowledgement of their shared pursuit of truth. He had exposed the corruption, avenged his family, and cleared his name. As sirens wailed and the authorities moved in, Elias the Mechanist chose his moment. With a final, lingering look at the fallen figures of his tormentors, he vanished once again into the shadows.